Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Black Rich Parents podcast. And today, I always say we have phenomenal guests. I think everybody we bring on is just phenomenal. I feel like I'm just saying it for the sake of it, but honestly, you do truly amazing work. We've known of each other for a little while. Jade, by the way, please introduce yourself and let people know what you do.
Hi, my name's Jade Newton-Gardener. I currently work for a youth-led media production company part-time called Fully Focused Productions as the Wellbeing and Inclusion Coordinator. So I look after all the young team. But I also am on a mission to push my own organisation out into the communities, which is called IMAP, which stands for I Am a Person. And its aim is to reignite play and playfulness in communities to support health, well-being and discovery of potential. And my passion is just play, all day, play.
I love that. So how did you get involved with working with youth, and what motivates you in this field?
Wow, it's a long story, but I'll try and make it short.
Well, I mean, you ain't got hours, but yeah, just go.
So I worked in the bank between 1998 and 5. After going to school, did great at GCSEs, went to 2 colleges, didn't finish anything. Didn't know how to tell my mum, but then my mum was like, listen, you'll find what it is that you want to do. And then she worked in the bank, and she was like, there's some summer work. Do you want to do summer work? Ended up doing the summer work, and I stayed in the bank. During that period of time, I went to Gambia in 2004, and it changed my life. Like, a few things had happened prior to going to Gambia. I lost my nan, lost quite a few friends to the streets, drugs, gun, knife crime. And then this week just came up where me and 4 friends decided we're going to go somewhere, and we chose Gambia. I was petrified. First time going to Africa. You see all this stuff on mainstream TV. You read about stuff. And so I had previously bought like books and pencils and candles and all different things to bring, and I left it at home. I went there, and it was like I'd been there for years. It's like I felt like I was at home. I had so much deja vu. I was reading the book Celestial Prophecy, and lots of things that I was reading in the book was actually ringing true when I was in Gambia. Like, they used the word over in the same way that they used it in the book. And it basically essentially tells you that everything happens for a reason. Like, nothing is circumstance, this book.
What's the name of the book, sorry?
Celestial Prophecy.
Yes.
I then came back. Actually, no, the thing in Gambia that really struck me was the first time. So we hung out with the people that worked in the hotel rather than doing all the touristy stuff. They showed us around. Then they was like, we want to cook for you at our compound. So we went, bought the food, went back to the hotel. They cooked the food, went to their compound, and then they brought out this big plate and gave us separate plates. So we was like, but where's your food? And they was like, it's all right, we're going to eat. So we was eating, and then everyone in that compound, there's like 3 different homes on that compound. People came and just ate food from this big plate, and then they'd move away, and then someone else would come, and then people kept on coming. Then they took food outside for other people who was on the compound, and it just blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God. At home, people are cussing about having the last bit of chicken or the bun or, I'm not eating that food. And to see the community spirit around food and eating and sharing was just like, it blew my mind. I came back from Gambia, and I was just so angry with myself and just the world. And I was like, you know what? I can't be in the bank no more. It wasn't fulfilling me. And I was engaging people or working with people who were having to pay for things that they actually couldn't afford. Or I was selling things that people couldn't afford. And then some of the people who had like bare money in their account were just the horrible, like they were nasty people. And I just thought, it made me realize just how much money doesn't bring happiness. Going to Gambia, working in the bank, and I was just like, I need to stop this. So I fell into playing youth work. My aunt had someone who worked for a youth and play service in Islington, and I became a pool worker. And that essentially allowed me to start working in after-school clubs originally.
A pool worker, did you say?
A pool worker, yeah.
Okay.
So that means like you go on a list, and if you're needed, they would ask you to come in
Okay.
to work at various sites that they ran. So I became the pool worker. Then they offered me some other work on a venture playground. So in the term times, I was after school clubs. Then in the holidays, I was at the adventure playgrounds. And then training came up. I was a little bit dubious about training because I was like, oh God, I haven't done like anything education-wise for a long time, and I didn't finish anything. But it was all in-house. So what it meant was I got to get the knowledge, and then I was able to play with the knowledge in the spaces that I was working, and it just clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been waiting for. I love it. I could see how what I was learning played out in the space that I was working, and I was able to test out different things and bring new stuff. And then I was able to see how the children and young people reacted to it, and just see their enthusiasm and the fun and just the growth in them just by me doing something that I loved. So then during my work, they asked me to do detached work on estates. So I started to do some of that stuff on different estates and connecting young people who were essentially, I would say, playing on estates and in the streets, like an example, playing football across the road while the cars are going
that
past.
sounds about right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. People will say that's a nuisance, but actually it's
Where
them
else are they
playing
supposed to
and
play?
taking
Yeah.
risk and, you know, seeing what happens if they hit a car or
Pushing boundaries.
pushing boundaries. But we essentially tried to move that to a safer space where they wouldn't get themselves into trouble and wouldn't be a nuisance as such, and then get them into youth hubs. While I was doing my training, I met an incredible playwork trainer called, she's now Dr. Jackie Jeffries. And she kind of kept hold of me. She was trying to do her own thing. And she gave me the opportunity to expand my knowledge and I would say I was playing at that time. And she dropped me in all these different spaces. So she gave me the opportunity to do my trainer courses, which means I can essentially teach youth work and play work qualifications.
And you stuck at that one, yeah?
I stuck at that one, yeah. And it's really mad. Maybe I'm going to digress, but it's mad because when I was younger, I really feel like there's a connection between what you play and enjoy when you're younger to your career or what you want to do, or even some people might say purpose. I always wanted to be a teacher, but that changed after I went through the education system, because I was like, Bunda, I don't want to be a teacher no more. I don't want to teach what they're telling me to teach. And then I thought maybe it's life skills. And then I found play work and I was like, oh my gosh, of course I can teach play work or youth work. So yeah, I essentially turned into the person that I used to play when I was younger. But yeah, she gave me these incredible opportunities. So I worked in Great Ormond Street Hospital running a play centre for the doctors and nurses' kids so they could bring them to work. We'd hold them in the space. Then when their shift finished, they'd go home. She managed to get, along with another incredible trainer that I had called Maureen Palmer, a woodland space up in Kent, which I think I've spoken to you about before, and we called it Nature's Playground. And we used to bring children, young people and families from London up to that space, and it was bare minimal, like no running water, like all it was wood, fire, darkness and sunlight. But they loved it. They always wanted to come back. And it was funny, the adults were more scared actually than the young people or the children. So yeah, I had that experience. And then we started to, because Gambia was the catalyst to me kind of changing my life, I always wanted to give back to Gambia. So I kept on going back, and this whole thing around everything happens for a reason. I kept going back, same hotel, Turns out the hotel's owned by an MP. I get introduced to the MP. I tell him about the work I'm doing. I then get my foot in the door at the National Youth Agency in Gambia, and we start doing some little partnership work.
Heavy. Yeah.
So we brought groups of young people to Gambia, and also after that we started to do stuff in South Africa. So I essentially supervised some South Africans to do their NVQ youth work over here. And then we brought some young people from a project that we ran over here to South Africa. But essentially, play work was at the heart of everything we did. So that group of young people were NEET young people. I don't know if you know what NEET. NEET is not in education, employment, or training.
Gosh, yeah. I've come across that before, but yeah, that makes sense.
And so I basically decided to move away from local authority working because there was so much restrictions, which I won't talk about. So much restrictions. I couldn't be my full self because of all of this health and safety. Also, they say grooming, but actually it's just you paying an interest in the individuals and supporting them.
I'm confused
in
with the
their
grooming
needs.
part. I'm scared to ask.
All right, I'll give you an example. So there was a young lady. She had just moved out of the bracket where she could attend the adventure playgrounds, but because she had nowhere else to go and her little crew, they used to hang out at the gates of the adventure playground. The work I'd done with her or how I'd interacted with her, I knew that there was stuff going on outside, like the context. So she just finished her GCSEs. We used to talk about lots of things. Maybe I was the one person she had to talk to, and we just used to talk and hang out and chill, have conversations. I'd tell her when, you know what, you shouldn't be doing that. She had a yacht worker at the time, and
A what worker?
a yacht worker, youth offending
Okay.
team. So she was already connected to that. And I think one of the things was she had to go and get her GCSE results. She didn't want to go by herself. She asked me to go. I'm like, of course, let's go. Go with her to pick it up. Can't do that. Okay. Then
I don't understand. I mean, if a young person needs support and needs extra support, then what is supposed to happen? I mean, I can see where there might be room for someone else who's not necessarily in the right frame of mind to take advantage of a young person like that. But
yeah, it doesn't make sense.
okay,
Doesn't make sense.
there's like no initiative or no intuition. There's no discernment. It's just these are the protocols and that's it.
Yep, that's it. So I was like, yeah, one local authority, can't deal with them. And I stayed with Dr. Jackie Jeffries and her organisation. So we got some money from a local authority and we created a construction course, but it was based on adventure playgrounds. So the NEET young people would come on the adventure playground, they'd have space to play about, but also they'd learn construction and give something back to the adventure playground because they'd construct something on the adventure playground.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So we'd done that at a couple adventure playgrounds, and then some money came up that the young people could actually go for from funds to do a project. And so they was like, yeah, let's go South Africa and build a swing on one of you lot's youth clubs. So they got the money and we took them, a group of them, to South Africa, and they essentially refurbished one of the youth hubs over in South Africa. So yeah, play has always been the key route to how I work and develop and support young people. And that's how I kind of got in. And everything has kind of, I feel like I've not had to have much interviews. Everything's kind of been word of mouth, and someone said, oh, there's this lady or there's this young lady who's doing this, should be great for this, you should get her in. Even the Prue work. So the yacht worker of that young lady who I was speaking about, he knew of a Prue that wanted youth workers to come in and try and keep the young people on site rather than go out and make mischief. So I went in, they gave me the role and I did that. Then they asked me to stay and support in the lessons. Then they asked me to run their refocus room, which is the room where the young people went when they got in trouble in the class. And And it just grew from there. It grew from there. Same as the Amy Winehouse Foundation. I used to run or teach playwork qualifications for a play association in East London. And the person who worked there moved to the Amy Winehouse Foundation, and they created the youth music program for the Amy Winehouse Foundation, and it had grown too big because that wasn't really her, what she was there for. So she asked if I would be willing to come in and kind of support them and kind of take it over, essentially. And that's how I got my place at the Amy Winehouse Foundation.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I was there for like 4 years, I believe. And then I moved into film. So I was working with young people with music as an interest. But they all had not the greatest of experiences in their life up until that point. And now I'm moved over to film, where I work part-time for Fully Focused, which is a youth-led media production company. And essentially, I'm like the auntie, or they call me Mama Jade. I just support them in their navigating life, well-being, and just trying to get them experiences that tap into their interests so that they can see if actually this is what I want to do. And if it's not, then they have something else to go into. Or we're always constantly asking them what it is that you're interested in and trying to essentially get them to play in that field and experiment and see, but have a safe space to do it. But at each point, they have an opportunity to kind of level up. So it might be a small set, then they might have lead role in a bit more of a bigger budget set to high-end TV, when they've had enough experience and we feel like they can maybe fly the nest a little bit. But they always have the opportunity to come back, and I think that's key. Youth work at the moment is about set timings. The work that I predominantly do and have always been, even with the young people for the Amy Winehouse Foundation, I'm still in contact with as many of those young people. That's all right, bless you. I'm still in contact with as many of those young people that I worked with over 10 years ago.
That's good. That's awesome.
And so with Fully Focused, there's no drop-off age, so they can be there for as long as they want, and they can go and come back and go and come back.
Which makes it wholesome.
Which makes it wholesome. It also taps into the fact that people grow at their own pace and in their own time. And if they can have the same people around them to support them and guide them, it makes all the difference.
Yeah,
rather than
there's a history there.
There's a history.
Without having to explain it again.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Unless they want to, so yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I think I might have digressed.
No, that I'm in awe of it all. I don't know how to ask this. I wanted to take it back to before you went to Gambia. You said you had quite a significant amount of losses with your friends and your friendship circles.
Yeah.
And I guess in ways, how, I don't know if it's the right way to ask, but how was that for you? And then how is it that your trip to Gambia helped to walk through that? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And then along with that, I guess that in some ways I'm alluding to the fact that the children, the young people that you're working with, whether you explain that to them or not, you have a sense of understanding of potentially what they might be experiencing, going through. So please,
So it's really, I would say the young people that I knew or that was in my circles, I was always kind of like a homely person. So I didn't go out all the time, but I knew these people. And some of them I knew more from primary school than in their youth.
Yeah, so they're long-term friendships.
So there was like long-term friendships. But the two people that I'm talking about in particular, I knew their sisters, then we still chilled together. So when they were taken by the streets, it was more about their sisters and me knowing their sisters and the family in that way rather than knowing their brothers.
Yeah.
So I feel like there was a little bit of a disconnect, but it still hurt. And I couldn't quite understand from my perspective, like why they felt the need to have to be doing what they was doing. or for that to happen.
I suppose, especially as well, knowing their family and what they're coming from.
Exactly,
too. Yeah.
exactly. I think the biggest one that hit me, though, was not necessarily about the friends, but was my nan passing. She'd always kind of been the rock of the family. And she looked after... It's really mad because she
Your
looked
who,
after...
sorry?
My nan.
Your nan, sorry.
Yeah. She'd always been the rock of the family. So I've always lived in North London, but I went to school in East London and secondary school in North London. But we used to drive down to my nan's every morning and go to school from there because my mum and dad had work. So, and then I'd go home back to my nan's, and my nan would put us on the train on the same carriage that my mum is to go back up.
Home. Yeah.
But she'd always looked after children. Like, there was children coming in and out of her house, young people. They'd come, we'd think they're coming for like a weekend. They'd end up staying like a year. But she essentially looked after people in her community. And then she kind of gave back to her community because there was a centre in a park near where we lived that she then became kind of like a caretaker for. And so, and she used to do dominoes. Dominoes was her thing. Like, she used to go abroad to do domino competition with her people.
And that's usually quite a male-dominated sport.
Yeah,
so
no. She mashed them up. Come home with pure medals. We still got them now. Even my son, to this day, he loves medals, and he has them like around the house. He's constantly coming back from my mum's house with the medals. So I think that hit me hard when she passed away. It was unexpected.
This is around the same sort of time.
Around the same sort of time as before. I think it was just after the two young people that I knew passed away. And so after that, I feel like I couldn't understand why it happened. And the way in which the grief played out with me is I was sick. So I just woke up one day and it felt like I couldn't stand. And I was walking bent over. I couldn't control when I went toilet. It was just really crazy. I went doctors, they'd sent me hospital. No one could tell me what it was. But essentially it was grief. The grief was being held down in the stomach area, the abdominal area. And I think over a period of time, that then affected me going into work at the bank, because I just felt like I had no purpose going into the bank. It was a bit of a dark time for me. I didn't want to be in the bank. I didn't feel like I was getting anything from it. And then we went to Gambia, and I was just like, oh my gosh, there is so much more to life.
Yeah.
Like, what have I been wasting my time? And then also working in the bank, I had a decent salary and I could buy myself a decent car, decent clothes. And I just thought, all of that doesn't mean nothing. Like, what means something is about community and supporting each other. And maybe it's life skills that I'm supposed to be sharing, and my story that I'm supposed to be sharing, that's going to make a difference and make me feel more fulfilled. And as soon as I came back from Gambia, I think within the year, I was like, I'm resigning. I resigned, and it was a bit like when I finished, I decided I'm not doing colleges anymore. I went to 2, I'm not doing it no more. I had no clue what I was going to do when I resigned from the bank. But I just knew that it had to be something to do with young people and children. And that's what happened. That's what it came to me.
I think it's those things that we underestimate how much grief can have an impact. And it's not necessarily someone passing or transitioning on. It could be just having loss, just general. And I just, think about our young people that have to deal with. And again, I think referring to your friends or your friends' siblings having got through into, that kind of life, unfortunately. Yeah. I think we underestimate as well the impact, of friends or friendship circles, and how it affects other people in that community, in that circle. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I spoke to a young person just this week, and I was saying that they're going through a bereavement at the moment. but it wasn't around the streets. One of their best friend basically passed away, but I was saying no one thinks about that side of the grief and the bereavement. Like, maybe their immediate family may get some bereavement counselling, but what about the friends or the girlfriend or the teacher
the cousins,
or the cousins, the aunties?
Yeah.
No one thinks about the wider picture. And so I think, it's important that we do start thinking about that. And even if it's not about the one individual and doing it for the one, because sometimes that's not feasible. If you can do it as a group, then it lessens how... Actually, I think it will be much more powerful if it is done by a group, because everyone's able to understand how people are feeling, and they're able to share it with others.
And if so they can't put things into words themselves, they might be able to hear someone else experiencing.
And other people's stories or how they're feeling may resonate, and so they don't feel so isolated and alone. But I think it's really important.
I think as well, like, I mean, we all experience loss in some way, as I was saying, and it's just interesting the expectations we have on people that are experiences significant loss or grief, like heavy grief, and sometimes in our grieving we put pressure on people who are grieving directly and don't understand the dynamics of that. So I guess I was just kind of reflecting on that aspect of things, and it's just something we don't talk about often enough.
I think it needs to be talked about a lot more than it is, and like you were saying, like, everyone has experience of grief at some point. And when someone else experiences that grief, it's not necessarily their grief that we're resonating with, it's the grief that we're still dealing with.
But culturally, we're just taught to it's part of life, so just get on with it. Do you get what I'm saying? But or just to bury it down somewhere. You know.
And you're holding that, and that can therefore become trigger for other experiences that you have. But one amazing piece of an approach that I learned about, oh my gosh, it's so bad, I don't remember the psychologist's name, but she's an incredible woman. She created the Tree of Life, but I did this Tree of Life training, and she said that with grief, they have an approach where you have to remember to say hello. So rather than, like, Western society tells us to put it to the side, okay, you have a funeral and then that's it, let go. Actually, no. Why do you want to let go? Don't ever let go. Always say hello. Always ask them questions. The first response that comes into your head, like, that's probably them giving you the information that you need. And whether you choose to go with it or not, it's up to you. It's just like they're still here. And essentially you are still part of them and they're still part of you. So asking, like, what would Nana say, or what would Nana do in this situation, and just really taking the moment to think about that keeps them with you, and it keeps them alive, and keeps them supporting you throughout your journey.
Thank you. Moving back into the work that you kind of do. For parents listening in, what are the most important things they should know to effectively support their children, teens, and young adults?
Important things that they should know. I think one of the crucial things is it's important to understand that they have to be themselves, their children. They're here to be themselves and not necessarily to be who you want them to be. They may be doing or play out what you wanted to do through your children. It's not about that. Like, yes, share stories, share what you wanted to do, your aspirations, and hopefully you reconnecting with those might make you decide, I'm going to try and do it now at whatever age you are. But essentially, your story is not their story. They have their own story to tell. And all they need is the support and backing from you. And it might fail, it may not fail, but as long as you're there to support them, regardless of what happens, that's the most important thing. And the failures are not even something negative. Like, that is where the learning lies. I'm always saying it's process over outcome. The process is where all the learning is. So you might be saying, don't do that, I did this, da, da, da. But actually, they're not going to understand it until they've gone through it and felt it. So that is the process. And the outcome might be, okay, they didn't get the job, or they didn't get to, I don't know, play in the team, whatever it is. But that learning journey is the most important thing. The outcome, the final outcome is not actually the importance, because also that final outcome, most of the time we don't remember that. What we take with us is the learning from that process.
Yeah, that journey.
Yeah, the journey.
Yeah.
What you achieve, because it doesn't hit us as much as the process and how it felt going through, what we achieve is not necessarily something that we hold.
Sometimes we get there and it's like, right, what's the next
What's
thing?
next? Yeah, because you're going to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But in moving on to the next thing, there are parts of that journey that they will take to help them to move on to the next thing. So process over outcome is one important thing. Also, they have their own story, and you're just there to support them in building the chapters in those stories. But it's not a selfless thing, because in that process, you should also be learning about yourself as a parent, because we're still learning and we're still growing. So also you have to remember self. That's what I would say.
Thank you. That was on point. I don't expect anything less anyway. Hey family, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you want to stay up to date with all things Black British Parent, we've got the perfect way for you to do just that. Join our mailing list and be the first to know about new episodes, exciting news, and upcoming events. It's super easy to sign up. Just head over to our website and into your email. Don't miss out on the latest from Black British Parent. Join our community today. Now, back to the show.
Thank you.
So, working with the youth, working with young people, young adults, what's the kind of most challenges that you kind of face working with them?
To be honest, the most challenges that I've had working with them is them not believing in themselves, not believing in their source, not believing in being able to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. And then I'll say the second thing, it's a lot around mental health. And then balancing mental health with everything else that's going on, but the systems being broke in order to support them with their mental health. I think those are the most challenging things.
Where do you think that's coming from? What makes those challenges happen? Like their lack of confidence?
I think it's about their experiences, their story so far, the people that they've had around them. And because our system expects everyone to be the same, or our systems expect everyone to be the same, if you're not the same, then you're not given the praise and the attention that you need.
Or you're not included.
Or you're not
Yeah.
included, and so that creates self-doubt. And so you're just... And also knockbacks. They might have tried to do something a couple times and it just hasn't worked. And then it's just like, you know what, what's the point? Like, why should I do this? And then other people are like, well, I don't know why you tried it. I think it's all about their story and the environments and systems in which they have to go to, most children and young people.
What kind of things, what strategies work for you to be able to work against that, to be able to help young people to get more confident?
I think one of the key things, and I've just got some testimonies from some of the young people I work with for my website, but one of the themes that ran through it is working with no judgment, allowing them to actually be themselves and come to you as themselves and feeling listened to, as well as feeling safe to be able to share. I think those are some of the key things. But a strategy that I feel really works is having that space, but also incorporating and going back to what makes them feel alive. And a lot of that is around, what did you like to play? Like, what things gave you joy? What things made you was just engrossed in it, and time just went and you didn't realize where the time went. Reconnecting them to those things and those happy feelings, I feel really has been a key to me working with the young people, regardless of how long I've worked with them or not. Just tapping back into their interests and their loves.
Just creating that safe space for them to do so. How can, in your opinion, how can the parents create that kind of space for their children to be able to communicate, you know, some of their challenges that they might be facing?
It's interesting you say that. So it's not really a challenge, but my son, he's 7, and the other night he, you know, you have that, I don't know what it's called. We used to call it extra sketching now, back in our days.
Yes, I remember those. So
yeah. But this one has like the pen.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
It's evolved. Yeah. So he done this real abstract drawing on the board, and there was hardly any space on one side, and then he drew like a box, and it was all coloured in black, and then the other side of it was abstract, but there was more space in between all the lines and squiggles and stuff. So I was like, the filled up space that had some space, but not that much. I was like, I bet that's what your brain is like sometimes when you're thinking lots of things, because you're always thinking about stuff. He's a bit of a worrier, and he overthinks quite a lot. And it kind of sometimes stops him from doing stuff that he wanted to do, i.e. football, but he's now got to a place where he's happy to do it. And he was like, yeah, mummy, it's true. That is like what my brain feels like sometimes. And with football, I was like that at 2 of the matches, but now I'm like this. And he pointed to the space that was a little bit emptier. And then he started to go through his picture and talking about all of us. So he was like, this is you, mummy. The box was Marley, where it was full up because she's always got stuff going on in her head. Yeah. And this is me, where it was less full up. And then he was like, what things make you feel like this? So we used that as a way to have a conversation. He just played, but I observed what was going on, and I thought, how can I use that to try and engage in, I call it playful conversations, in a conversation where we can speak about his mind, us in that as the household. He actually brought up extended it into all of us.
That was from your
But it was just from my prompting in the conversation and seeing what I saw.
And the questions,
And the questions that I asked. And he went to bed happy. No, he was meant to be going to sleep. I could have been like, no, we're not talking about this now. Yeah. It's time for bed. But I saw that moment to be able to have that conversation with him. And he went to bed happy, and I went to bed happy, knowing that we'd had that conversation. So I think being super observant is really key. And sometimes just finding the space or the right moment to have that conversation or pick up that conversation with your children, regardless of age. Like, we could talk about technology. Our young people are always on technology.
Yeah.
They're not all watching the same thing. They watch different things based on their interests. If you see them watching something, then why not have a conversation based on what they're watching and if you have something that's concerning or you think is a challenge, how can you navigate what they're interested in into having that conversation?
Yeah. It's kind of stepping into their world instead of expecting them to step and always be in yours.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think it's beautiful that you can give that example as well. 'Cause it's such a simple and beautiful example, and I think it's definitely a play on being mindful. Because sometimes we that's just a buzzword that's around all the time, being mindful, but we don't necessarily understand what that means, and we have our own interpretation of what that means. But again, it's observation, and then there's also using your intuition by using the resources of what you have, which is your little boy doing his work. Yeah. Well, not his work, but just playing with his toys sort of thing.
Right,
yeah, that's beautiful. Mentorship.
Yeah.
How do you see that impacting our young people? What role does it play in supporting our young people?
I'm so undecided with mentorship. I think some young people it works for. Having that one person who, for me, mentorship is about setting goals, them going away, trying to achieve the goals and coming back. I feel like everybody who comes into a young person's life is essentially a mentor. There's a purpose for it. not all young people are gonna be able to work with a mentor in the way that mentorship is set up, or how it's kind of the structure around mentorship. I feel like, and also it's normally for a set period of time, mentorship. And like I was saying, people grow at different paces and they develop in different ways, and they need different methods rather than sitting down, creating, a to-do list, goals, the steps. Some people can't cope with that. So I'm a little bit on the fence about mentorship, because I feel like maybe there should be purposeship. I don't know, like just like what is the and then that gives you reason to think about the whole context of that young person, all the different people in their life. What do you think their purpose is for being in your life? What can they support you with? Because, and it being longevity, because having things for a certain period, once it's gone, it's very easy to slip back. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about mentorship. I agree,
because I never, until you're saying it the way you're saying, I never really quite looked at it that, like, I'm lying. I have looked at it that way, but on the basis that it feels like there is a set intention with it. Some people work well with it, right? Especially when they've got a set goal they want to achieve.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes for young people, it's the whole, for example, the whole school process, 18, 19, for some children, it's difficult to decide what they want to do for the rest of their life. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So unless you've got like a goal in that respect, fine. If you're a bit open or not too sure, then mentorship is not necessarily going to work for you.
Yeah.
Whereas something like purposefulship can help you to negate yourself holistically, and perhaps then tap into the various aspects and get the guidance to support you. Okay, well, that's a skill that you naturally have, or that's an ability or interest. And I suppose we'd assume that's what mentorship is. But in the grand scheme of things, it might not necessarily feel that way for the person receiving it.
Absolutely. And what you're describing to me is a bit like how I feel I try to work when you could say I'm a mentor, but it's how I try to work in terms of allowing young people, or reminding young people, to not leave the playground. So that they have opportunity to experience different things and decide whether or not that thing is for them. I suppose with mentorship, you can't, because it's a bit more rigid. You have to think about what those things are, but how do you know what those things are if you haven't experienced them? And why would you want to put so much time and effort into that goal if you don't even know if that's what it is that you want to do? So I think before we do any the school system forces mastery learning onto us. The play is all about discovery learning, and you can do that up until the day you die. You're still discovering pieces of yourself and what your interests and what you love and what you're good at. Mentorship almost cuts off that discovery, because you're asking them to create a goal about something that they want to do, but they've never had an experience in it. And then they have kind of, okay, there's the process and the learning, and then they understand, actually, that's not what I want to do. But how about we find out and give them spaces and opportunities and experiences for them to find out, and have a tester in it, and then set those goals.
Let them have a bit of experience.
Have a play.
It's mad because it's like, what was I thinking? I was thinking, like, that's the only area where it seemed like it's imagination's allowed with the mentorship. Like, you've not experienced anything like that before, but you're supposed to imagine yourself in a field that you've not been in before.
And the system in which they're brought up in stops them from imagining.
But creativity and play, there's room for imagination, but it's uncontrolled, so people can't necessarily click with it. And what we can, average Joe and young children, young people can, but I'm saying that in terms of,
it's not
the authorities or the ones that's guiding, they can't necessarily.
It's because
you get
the outcome is self-driven. It's not adult-driven. It's not an adult agenda-led outcome. And so it's difficult for you to quantify it or for you to qualify it. But hopefully with IMAP, I'm trying to get the general public to learn about play theory. And so maybe if they understand it a bit more, then when they see their children, their young people, young adults doing things, they will look at it as through a play lens and see where that play theory fits with it. And then they'll be able to say, it's deep play. How do we deal with deep play in a more positive way? Oh, it's recapitulative play, which is one of the ones that I absolutely love. That's what I play all the time when you see me dancing.
Can you elaborate on that, please? Sorry.
So recapitulative play is about allowing children and young people to experience ancestral play, ancestry, history, rituals, fire, that sort of side of things. So when you see me dancing, it's really mad. So I had a moment last year where I felt like I was really tapped in, or I was going through a transition, and things just kept on coming. I'm like, oh my God, it fits. This is what's going on. But I met someone on a program. We did something at the City Hall as youth workers. Then we had our ceremony. At the ceremony, she shared with us the traditions of dance that they used to use in the sugar plantations after they come back from work. And it was about really listening to the beat, and they used to dance, and the men used to circle around them to keep them safe. So she shared that. This last year, during the same year that happened, a young person, also from Mauritius, they were from, she decided she does wardrobe in film. That was her kind of thing that she was interested in, wardrobe and, what is it? Like art department. So that's the stuff that she'd been doing. But then she also is very much into fashion. So she said, I really want to do a fashion collection based on the traditional dance of Mauritius. And so I helped her to plan. Maybe that was my bit of mentorship, but she'd had a little play about with it already.
But she had a goal.
She had a goal. So we planned it all out. We put some dates in. She may not have hit all the dates, but she done it. And she created a collection based on the clothes that they used to wear at those dances. And then after seeing that process, then watching the young lady from Mauritius do the dance and her explain where it comes from and why they do it was to release tension in their body, to stretch, to heal from the situation, from slavery. I was like, oh my God, this is what I do. People see me dancing, I'm listening to the beat. It's not necessarily the words, it's the beat. My body's, we're 80% water, right? So your body is vibrating to the beat, whatever beat that takes you, you're vibrating. But if I don't listen to music, I know I'm overwhelmed, or I've got a lot going on, I'm feeling stressed. As soon as I've put music on, I'm like, why
melts it away differently.
And I just dance.
Just making a point though, Jade has her Instagram and she's always skanking on her Instagram still. So
And that is, and it just kind of hit me. I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm tapping into my ancestry. This is probably what my forefathers, my ancestors used to do. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA. And so, recapitulative play is really something that I think it's really taps into culture, and it's something that I really want to explore a lot more in terms of healing and allowing young people and children just to play in a way that taps into that play type, because I feel like it can help with healing.
I love that. If you could give a piece of advice to parents to better understand and connect with their children, what would it be? Especially in today's society.
Do you know what? In today's society, there's that thing where they say our children mirror us, Sometimes it's not about the person that's in the mirror. It's about the person that's standing in front of it. And it's about, I feel our kids are here to make us check ourselves and help us grow. So even though...
It's not their responsibility, but they're here.
It's not their responsibility, but that is part of the purpose why 100%. They're here. And so if you're standing in the mirror and you understand you're not liking the reflection, that is in front of you, you must understand that part of that reflection is you, and maybe you need to reflect on yourself in order to support your child, your young person, your young adult that you're having to deal with. And sometimes that's a tough thing, because I know I've had to do it a few times. But we need to remember that and think about our growth as parents and remember the word sorry.
Mate, that's a magical word, you know.
Oh my days.
And with the right intention.
Absolutely.
Like genuine intention.
Sorry.
With it. Yeah.
And the reasons for.
Yeah.
I remember I put a post on my Insta, and I apologized to my daughter. I had a video when my son was born. It was almost, I tried my best, but the other siblings kind of get put to the side. And I put a video up ages ago of this, and it was shining the light on Nazi. So he had...
Are we good? Sorry, go on.
He had a book of Marley's, a manga book. And he was like, I don't understand. And he must have been about 2, because he spoke really early. I don't understand. I said, oh, you have to ask Marley. And she was like, what don't you understand? But in between that, she was saying, mummy, mummy. And I totally ignored her because I was focusing on him. So when I first posted it, I posted it about, look at this boy. He's asking his sister. He don't understand. She was like, what don't you understand? He was saying something like, the white girl, what's she doing? So she must have said, oh, he's fighting. But when I watched that back, I was like, oh my God, my daughter was calling for me.
Yeah,
and she may have wanted to share something. She might have wanted to, and I just totally ignored her. So I put the post back up a bit years later, and I apologized. But I obviously apologized to her, and I shared it with her and how it
sets
felt.
an example to other parents. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it hurt my heart that I had...
Let me rephrase that, sorry. Not to set the example, but it's a relatable example.
Yes.
Because it's not us. Yeah, so sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
You were saying...
it really hurt my heart when I watched that back, and I realized that there's probably lots of moments where that's happened, because having another baby...
And it's not captured on camera.
And it's not captured on camera. And sometimes your focus is somewhere else when it should be in another place.
And it's probably rightly so, but when you have more than one child, you can't ignore. You have to kind of somehow be...
Try and balance.
Yes, try.
Try and balance. And it's not always easy.
No.
So, I've had to apologize to my daughter plenty of times. And I know she's the sort of person that holds stuff and she don't forget stuff. So that also might be a reason why I have this thing about, I'm really trying to focus on listening to my kids at the moment. It's hard sometimes. And they both have very strong personalities and feel like they know what it is that they want to say and how they want to say it. And how they say it, sometimes I don't want to hear it in that way.
Mate.
But you need to just listen to them, innit?
And you have to take yourself outside of yourself sometimes. Address it accordingly as and when, but give them the space at least. Because they're learning. We have adults that don't even know how to talk to each other.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We can't expect our young ones to know already.
Already, exactly. Sometimes I feel like we place too much expectations on our children and young people, and then we also want to compare, but actually bunda comparing.
100%.
You know, like that your child or your children are all individuals in their own right. They all have their own personalities, characteristics, ways of being, ways of doing. And sometimes those ways of being and doing are for us to learn and check about us, check ourselves.
And sometimes it's coming from us too.
And it's coming from us,
But something you mentioned before as well was in terms of, and it's something we often talk about, the boundary pushing, like the children tend to feel more comfortable with us to push boundaries.
Yeah.
But we don't see it as that.
Yeah. So we're often at home, we might see, like at school or outside in other environments, away from you, they may be the best, or you may feel they're the best kids in the world. And when they come home, it's a totally different child. But I was saying, I think that what we have to understand as parents is, because they feel safe in your space and around you, that is an opportunity for them to push boundaries and test things out, and a way of them learning about boundaries and how far, what their limits are. And what better place to do it? Like, wouldn't you prefer them to do it in your home with you rather than be doing it outside?
100%. And you know where their boundaries are.
And you know where their boundaries are.
Instead of finding out about it.
Absolutely.
Outside the home.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to understand. Like, it might come across of maybe them displaying negative behavior or being rude or disrespectful, but understand that at some point what's in there is that they feel safe to be able to do that with you, and then that is a catalyst for you to have these conversations that need to be had. And they might not have to happen straight away, because if they have upset you with their approach or their behavior, it's okay to leave it until later on in the day. Or one of the things that work with me and my daughter is she doesn't really verbalize stuff. She writes it down. So she might send me a text, or I might send her a message and do it that way.
That's beautiful, because, you know, like we have some people that might judge families where they might text or call each other when they're still in the same house sort of thing. But it can be used in a positive way.
Absolutely, yeah. I've had notes under my door sometimes. But yeah, she generally tends to send WhatsApp messages. Or her new thing is creating little memes. She'll create a meme. Like the other day, she wanted cake, and she created a meme asking me for cake, and I said no. And then she created a meme in response
to it,
to how she feels about not getting the cake. And there was like a person or lots of people going, ah. And I mean, that's communication, man. That's using technology to communicate. Yeah. She's learned how to edit. Like, look at all the positive things that come out of just
instead of being vexed at the response.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, man,
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. What's your favorite film?
Oh my gosh. Do you know what? This is going to be really controversial, because I don't know how much people actually understand how powerful this film is. I only just saw it. It's on Netflix. It's called The Kitchen. People just don't get how deep that film is. I love that film too. Oh my days.
You've got my heart, I swear down, because no one gets it.
I don't understand what people don't get. That is just life. Like, we are living that right now. It might not be on one estate, but this stuff has been happening consistently, just not so much in our face.
Yeah, man.
Power to that young group. The
group of actors, and Daniel Kaluuya for
oh my days,
creating that film, and
incredible.
Casting Kano for that part as well. Like, everything made sense.
Everything made sense. I love it.
Yeah, man.
I need to do an Insta. I said, like, it deserves its own post, because
I guess serious. You know what? As much as some people don't get it, it's not for everyone to get. Do you get what I'm
it's
saying?
not, and that's something I said.
Yeah.
It's really mad, because the production company is in the same office where I work for Fully Focused.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to one of the, I think he was a producer on it, and he was really downhearted by the response they've been getting. But I was like, listen, they're not ready. They're not ready for what you lot brought. This film will hold legacy, and it will be talked about for a long time.
That should be in schools, talked about in GCSE, media studies, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They're not ready, but I am. So keep them coming.
Yeah, exactly. Straight. I'm ready for it. Man. Like, we need more of that.
Yeah.
We need more of that, instead of always being so trauma informed. Everything that's pushed out is about trauma, I feel. And because there is a bit of trauma in there, but it's not
the way it's usually done.
Yeah, the way it's usually done.
The way it's marketed, how it's expected, how it's normally received.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like the pace of it.
Yes.
I think the pace needed
perfect.
To be like that, so that it gives you time to reflect.
They wanted their questions answered.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted it spelled out for them, instead of actually thinking. Or relating.
Absolutely.
Or, do you know what I mean? And it also was beautiful to see Black British culture.
Yes.
The way that it was presented,
and how
in
it was
space.
Presented. All the things like the Black British culture, the bike riding, the skating, the Afrofuturism.
Yeah, man.
Listen. And the way that they lit those shots, it brought it to life, because that is what life is for the culture. Do you know what I mean? yeah, it's just, there's so many things that I love about the kitchen. It's unbelievable.
100%. I'm down. I agree all the way. So yeah, keep them coming.
Yes,
We're
please,
yeah,
please.
you got a following, definitely. Is anything you would like to say to our listeners, Black British parent, or just Black British parents in general?
I just think that we need to start understanding that we're not alone. Like, we really need to start using our community and creating spaces where we come together and just share. Like, we don't need to pay for therapy, yeah? We just need to pay for a space to sit in a circle and talk and share stories and to support each other. This podcast, Black British Parents, is the catalyst to making this all happen. Like, we need to have more spaces where people can share stories, share skills, share knowledge, and where we can just unite and bring all of that skills together and create better communities and spaces for our children and young people.
Thank you. We're trying.
You're doing, man. You're doing.
I'm working on it. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you.
To spend with us and our listeners.
It's been an honor. Like, I'm really privileged. I watched you guys. Like, I loved watching you guys. I think it kicked off in lockdown. I used to watch all of your lives, and I used to be vexed when it used to just chop off, and I'd be like, "Bun the system." But yeah, it's just a privilege. I'm really, really pleased to be part of this and part of your journey, and I'm going to stay on the journey, and I'm here to support because I know it's like-minded people. We can create great stuff and just make stuff happen.
100%. Please let people know where they can find you and how they can get in touch.
Okay, so Insta, J_B_G_N is my Insta. My website, which is coming very, very soon, is www.imapcommunity.org. And once that's up, you'll be able to contact me via that. And yeah, just DM me on Insta if you want to chat. Like, I'm very open. Lots of young people still message me through Insta and ask for support or ask me questions. What do I think about that? Like, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help. Like, yeah.
Sure. And please remind us of the organizations you work with as well.
Okay, so I also work for Fully Focused Productions, which is a youth-led media production company. And we also run MYM, which is a YouTube channel, which is all youth-led as well. And then my organization is IMAP, which stands for I Am a Person, and it's about reigniting play and playfulness in communities to support health, well-being, and discovery of potential.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in this episode. Hopefully we'll see you next time, and take care of yourselves.